Remember Spotty Pigeon? Yeah. And again, it came on from a different type of game from the original. So, just for the panel, really, and for Shaun, was this a given norm in the time development? So, obviously, you had cross-platform is just ubiquitous these days, isn't it? You know, in terms of you develop a game comes out on the Xbox, PlayStation, all the rest of it. Was it a case that games had to be substantially different across the different platforms back in the day? Or?
Well, it was just limitation with technology. I mean, the Commodore got sprites and hardware scrolling and a really, really good sound chip, and you could, you know, do so much more with it. The Spectrum got a limited screen, 2 colours per character square, you know, attributes, and you know, we were just limited. You couldn't scroll the screen, anything apart from software. You had to move all the pixels by, you know, the processor had to do it. You just did what you could with it, you know. Oh, it beeped, yeah.
It beeps a bit.
Speaker that you toggle the bit and turn the speaker on and off, you know. So you had to time it out with the processor. It was all really good fun. I mean, it was amazing what people managed to do. And I'm not suggesting myself, there were some people who did absolutely fabulous things with it.
They still do. There's some guys who are developing games like In the Hall right now, aren't they?
Yeah.
They bring stuff out. Did any of you guys have a favourite system that you like to work on? Or?
You mean?
It's like, did you prefer coding for a Spectrum, C64, or?
Well, I mean, we ended up embracing just about everything, you know. In my time, you know, Peter and I worked on all sorts of things, didn't we? You know, my favourite computer in those days, I suppose, for me, was when the Acorns took off, the Archimedes, because it was like Spectrum. You had to do everything with the processor, even the sound. I mean, Peter was the lad that worked out how the sound worked, because it just completely confused me at the time. But you did everything, the processor did everything. So if you had a sort of software screen scrolling smoothly, that thing was the processor shifting all the pixels around, not some hardware.
Right.
And it was so powerful for its time. It did become my favourite machine. We did a lot of things with it, you know. And that, of course, sort of came later on. But at Gremlin, I suppose it's got a bit of Spectrum and the Amstrad, because they were the ones I understood the most, really.
The ones you love the most, almost.
Yeah.
Right, cool. Just moving this on for a moment, we've got Suicide Thunder up here, I believe. Suicide Express, even, from Black Thunder. So we've got 1984 now, so ending with Tony leaving Gremlin due to apparently artistic differences. Any comment?
It's one of these things again. I leave a company and I don't get any pennies. So I did a game called Suicide Express, and I left and didn't get any pennies for it. So I then reskinned it and sold it to Quicksilver, and I got some money for it now. So
that's exactly what I was going to ask you, yeah. So there you go, you've heard it here first, guys. So I was going to say, is it the same engine, different game, or is it just the same game?
It's actually the same game, just different sprites.
Okay, fair enough. Any...
That's how we managed to do it in 2 weeks.
The truth will out, my friend.
Yeah, the speech was a bit naughty though. I think that was ripped out of Arabian Nights. There's a game called Arabian Nights, and I worked out if you put these 20 numbers into this, you could make it talk. So I ended up making it say Suicide Express. Get ready, go.
Yeah.
Straight on.
Well, that's
naughty, but.
So you got one. It does look very similar, doesn't it? That's what I was going to ask you. Cool stuff. Okay, 1985 then. So I'm just trying to keep this speed along, guys. Back to Just Micro again. So one of the things that's noticeable about Just Micro, that I think is going to be interesting to talk about with these guys here, was it was a game space really before the phrase was really coined, as it's today. Latest releases are available in the shop to try and arrange the computers, as we've just discussed earlier on, and it enabled yourself to highlight potential programmers. But also served as a bit of, did you use it as a bit of as a focus group as well to sort of test the games before they came out? Or?
Yeah, new games would be put down into the shop, and we'd get feedback from a certain group of guys that would come in and test. But occasionally they'd take them home and try them as well.
And did you change it based on that then? Is that how the process worked? Like testing today?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. There's no testing as Products are put through QA today. They got finished, they got played a bit, and they went out.
That was it.
And that was it. Yeah.
But can you guys remember what the atmosphere was like in Just Micro? I mean, did you go down to the shop quite often?
It was smelly. when you put about 60 hormonal teenagers in one little room playing computer games and there's no air conditioning, it gets rather steamy.
Got the front door open quite a lot.
No, the atmosphere was good, and that's why people kept coming back.
Just keep that going.
I remember going in with the new game and sort of showing all the kids, say, "Look, I've just done this sort of thing." So if they didn't like it, I'd make some changes. But, so they had that first showing of the games and Just Micro.
Just going down, like, hey, exclusive, you can play it here first, kind of thing.
Yeah, so we used to meet, there's some friends that used to meet up there. I think it was like a social group in Just Micro computers.
It looked like a community base.
And that's some of the guys that ended up, one of them, Scott Guest is over in the States working for Microsoft, leading one of the teams over there. So
wow.
It's
so you pretty much like people's lives started in your shop, nice shop. Think of it now.
Well, that's some, yeah.
That's cool. I love that. I love the idea of that. It doesn't happen. You don't hear stories like that these days. Where you can just come in, to a community space, and then your life just goes from there. It must be a very cool feeling for you guys to know that so many people's careers kind of started, right in Gremlin and at Just Micro as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of businesses spun out of Gremlin at the end of the day. Whether it be marketing companies, other software houses. Tony went off and did his thing, Pete went off and did his thing, and other groups did the same. So it's how the business grew.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, so you might recognise this picture from Crash magazine. Just get people's reactions on their faces there. Oh my god.
And the tall one at the back.
Never good for handsome guys there. Back to This Is Your Life, as it were. So with Monty riding high in the charts, you get loads of accolades, including Best Platform Game of 1984. Gremlin's reputation begins to increase, and the first major magazine to crash was in July 1985. And there's the Gremlins right there. From left to right the photo from the magazine outside Just Micro. So you've got a youthful-looking Shaun, Kev, Ian, Chris, Peter, and then Christian on the end there. Do you remember that photo being taken? Yeah.
Yeah, there's one taken just after that by skipping the back.
Oh dear. I mean, how important was that interview for you guys with Crash then at the time? I mean, what did it have an effect on the sales? Did you see like a noticeable increase after the article came out?
Those Zap and Crash were very influential at those times, and if you weren't, if you didn't get people like Julian Rignall and Gary Penn on your side and treat them as they wanted to be treated, then you had a chance of not getting a decent review. But that's when they were all at Newsfield, obviously. But it did make a difference, without a doubt. I'm not sure how many copies they were selling at that time, but I would have thought it was probably in excess of 100,000 copies a month.
I think it was around about that figure, yeah. Not got that 100 years. But it's one down there. But yeah, I mean, was that just a case of building up relations with those guys and keeping them happy, keeping them sweet, or was it a genuine, they just liked your games, or was it a bit give and take?
Yeah, it was building relationships. Sometimes they'd slate your product, which unfortunately happened. But they were pretty accurate. If they didn't like a product, there was generally a reason for it.
They used that to build onto the next product.
That's right. Yeah. It's not nice having a product getting hammered in the way that they could, but. That's the way the industry sort of improved itself.
So do you think that it's still happening today? I mean, how do you guys feel about magazine reviews in general nowadays? Do you think it's all like, sort of, there's rumours of backroom deals and people, and press events and things, or do you think it's a case of there are some genuine reviews out there that are really, influencing the games market in a positive way, or do you think it's become too corporate now? Is there any thoughts on that?
I think the reviews can vary a lot sometimes. If it's a really good one, and really bad. Whereas in the old days, I can't remember ever being really bad reviews. So they're all in the same ballpark. But now you can get vastly, I've seen it with some of my games, it'll be vastly out, or some of them give you like 9 out of 10 and things. So, it's slightly different, I think. The only way I used to go down to Zap quite often, every couple of months, used to go visit him. So I used to got another game back then.
Careful though. Okay, right, so let's get that photo out. Anyway, there's the Crash magazine there for you guys. So, I mean, if you can find it on the net, by the way, guys, it's quite a substantial article. It's well worth tracking down. So, definitely check that out. It's a good read. Moving on to Monty is Innocent. So, Chris Kerry was entrusted to produce the second Monty game, released in March, and it was in March from the original platform, as a lot of you guys here will know. Displayed quite large, colourful sprites. I don't know if you can really see them, but and quite a large play area. And they brought that across. Chris brought that across from his 4 days. Even though the game's entitled Monty is Innocent, a lot of you might know that he's actually a secondary character in the play controls of Sam Stokes. Ian and Peter. So, what was the reason for allowing Chris to produce the second game of the Monty series, and why did it move on from it actually being a platform to being the game it became?
Pass.
Pass. Just one of those. It just happened.
Yeah. Chris was available, and he'd not long joined us, if I remember rightly, and he already had some stuff working on the Spectrum, and I think generally that's how the next game got designed, around what Chris had created.
What he created at the time. Did you have any input there than Pete, or?
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Other than Sam Stoke.
Ah, right, okay. I've got a question from Twitter. Is what was the decision to use Monty an idea from the start, or was it almost used as a sort of cash-in because of the previous game? Or was it just that? It was always going to be a Monty Mole game when it was being developed?
It was always going to be a Monty Mole game.
Always was. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. There you go, Twitter. If you can see that, then there's your answer. Right. Moving on to Grumpy then. Moving on up. Hey. And we're going to turn the sound down, so it's going to be annoying. There you go. Yay. I love this game. Basking in the glory there. Anyway, sorry. So Shaun's first non-conversion project was Grumpy Super Sleuth, released in November. Set in a department store, and Grumpy was a store detective who had to deal with shoplifters, extinguishing fires, and making his demanding boss a cup of tea. Any of you guys can sort of shed light on where the inspiration for this game came from at all?
I think most of the ideas for that came from Ian, didn't it? Remember? The ducks in the shop and things,
Me asking for the tea, I think.
I think so, yeah. And I think the corporate boss and that, with the sales thing going down and down and down, that's just my humour, that. Just the way I see things, Not pessimistic or anything, but, I've always had this kind of scepticism of bosses and corporates and, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've always never lived in that world, so,
It's not fun. I mean, what was the idea behind making it 3D? I mean, it must be quite challenging at the time.
Well, I think there was like ultimate stuff, and they were doing all this isometric stuff. So we thought about trying to do something a little different, like a front projection, deep screen. And we're just fiddling around with the technology and just come up with an idea that we could maybe do it. It's like pseudo 3D, really. It's not true 3D. But we could make things go behind the background and stuff like that, just to see where it took us,
Impressive looking game in the day, though. I remember it Anyway, I'm taken in by the thing there. Okay, so we've got a game here as well. Beaver Bob, remember this one?
Yeah. I don't think it ever got finished, did it?
No, I never saw the light of day.
It never, yeah,
No.
that's what we've got here. Because we've got, well, where are we? Probably one example is a vaporware. So it was announced to the public but never released. So what, I mean, again, a question to Twitter, what is the general story behind that? Was it just a case of it didn't get finished in time, or was it just got pulled? Or?
No, it was being coded by Christian Urquhart, and we just couldn't get the game good enough. It just couldn't get it there. So at the end of the day, it came down to the fact that the idea wasn't good enough.
And that was it.
And that was it. So it got canned, yeah.
Got a screenshot of that of it here, I believe. If it's going to work, there we go. This was a competition, I believe, as well at the time. Do you remember this? So we've got Crash ran a competition to design the character loading screen. And the again, someone where have we got here? I haven't got his name there, but one of the guys on Twitter there, if you're watching, hello. It said it was, did the competition winner actually get in contact with you saying, hi, where's this game? Can I have a copy? Or did you ever hear from him again?
I'm going to take the fifth on that one. Absolutely no idea.
You just can't remember at all?
No, not at all, I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go. Sorry about that, then, guys. Okay, well, we'll move on then if we can't remember that one. On to William Wobbler. So Tony's continuing his move around the industry during '85, and together with Roger Taylor, they established Wizard Developments, which spawned games such as this one, William Wobbler. Tony, what the hell was this game all about?
It still makes me laugh, that name. Don't know how we got away with it. It was just an idea, an experiment I wanted to try. So I learned how to do things wrong in that one. So I learned not to do things 7 ways. And, I think that was the first game where I decided that making something random where the game changes actually is a bad thing. So I didn't do that thing. Because you drop down these holes, but you've got no idea where you land. And it was fixed. Once you drop down, it will always be there. But the problem is it changes every time you press start again. So at that point there, it just made it really difficult. So I refused to do it.
So was that by design then, I'm presuming?
It was an idea we wanted to try, and it didn't work as well as we wanted it to work. So,
fair enough, so
I think it was a disaster.
Fair enough. We have there's been so many people writing in asking what can you elaborate on what William Wobbler was all about? So there we go.
I just had an idea that I might be able to do something in it. I've never used the stretch sprite before, so it's the first time I tried that as well in a game.
Yeah.
So the lead characters have got stretch sprite on it. So not only all high detail, there's a background stuff that wasn't on. So this time I took the full screen.
Is that how a lot of games came about then, you guys? You just kind of had an idea, ooh, that could work, let's see if I can make that work, and then the game spawns from that? Is that all?
You could do that, because in my case it took me like 2 or 3 weeks to run these games, and so 2 weeks of experiment, whether it fails or doesn't. And then usually you think, well, it's alright, we can probably sell this, and then you sell it anyway.
And you sell it anyway, based on what you've done. The two week...
Can't do that now. It takes too long to write. It took like 2 years now, so it's not like that anymore.
Fair enough. There we go. And if we look at the pattern on there, there's a very familiar address. That ring a bell, that address? And it's in fact obviously the same offices as Gremlin's HQ. Care to comment, Tony, on this? I mean, was it the fact was it owned by Gremlin, or are they giving you some creative freedom? Or?
No, there was an altercation between myself and Roger Taylor, which there was a disagreement, and I was doing some other work with Roger at the time. He actually developed a BBC joystick adapter, and we sort of got into business manufacturing those and getting those sold out. And no, we just had a disagreement, and Roger moved into the offices next to mine, so that was how it worked.
Ah, right, okay.
So, sensitive atmosphere.
Yeah.
We're passing in the corridor on the way to the loo, but...
Just kind of like sidestepping around. Okay, well, let's move on to one that everyone here will probably remember. Thing on a Spring! If you're knowing nods from people around the room, one of our guys over there is saying it's one of his favourite games earlier on. So, Obviously, notable additions to the Gremlin team in 1985 was Micro Projects Limited, co-owned by Jason Perkins, Anthony Clark and Mark Rogers, and I'm getting lots of feedback here, sorry guys. First title, Thing on the Spring, these things, I'm going to stand up in it. There you go. It's obviously inside sort of multiple games, but then... Oh, man. Smooth as always. Got a Zebedee-like magic roundabout character on there, as we all know, and it was a smash hit. Zapp and City Sinclair scoring it 93. And Julian Rignall's quote was saying, "The sound is unbelievable. I won't describe it, just wait until you hear it." So, one for the panel, and especially at the end. Has Micro Projects been contacted because of contracted because of the loss of Tony, or had they approached you with Thing on the Spring in the first place?
If I remember rightly, Jason contacted us. He'd been producing some C16 software and Pt2 software, and we just got to know him and showed us an early demo, and we worked together on it.
I mean, another question from Twitter here. That everyone wants to know why there was no Spectrum version.
We did a Spectrum version of Thing Bounces Back. Sure we did. Yeah. I think at that time it was probably it was probably looked to be a bit too challenging for the Spectrum, we moved straight on to Thing Bounces Back, and then did an Amstrad version and a Spectrum version, as well as 64.
Cool, fair enough. There we are. That's better, isn't it? Okay. Sorry about this, guys. A bit tech thing here.
Shaun's reckon it would have been easy.
It is. It's great music. Do we want to hear the music a bit louder, by the way? There you go. Right. Boing, boing.
Tony can do this in 2 weeks on Spectrum.
Never done a Specky game.
Go on, get on it now. That's your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to get on a Spectrum in there, we'll lock you in the staff room.
I can't go with the keyboard. It drives me mad.
No? Oh, come on.
I was spoilt on the 64.
iOS download, come on! Get on iOS, original code, original thing on there, get on an app, everyone will be happy, you'll make a fortune.
Maybe. Now I'm saving the old game version for when I'm retiring. Might dig them out and do them. Oh yeah, too busy doing this stuff.
Oh dear. Okay, fair enough.